Right. Well, that's the script sorted for episode one. Just need some kind of intro, something I'm going to introduce the channel, energetic, appealing, something that people will like. Gets the channel off on the right foot. Okay. Cut. Let's see.
The year is 2025. Humanity has woken from a long night of uneasy dreams and found itself transformed into something alien, unrecognizable, and monstrous. The family breakfast table, that sacred altar of bourgeois life Kafka knew so well, stands empty. In basement apartments and overpriced pods, modern Gregors anxiously check their notifications, dreading the moment algorithms deem them ungeziefer, vermin, unfit for sacrifice. Some seek salvation in digital profits, others simply lie flat in their rented cells, their exoskeletons hardening with each rejected application. Life's ladders, corporate, social, romantic, have twisted into Mobius strips, endless climbs that lead nowhere. Plagued by comparison, by self-awareness, by the sheer crushing scale of the modern world, more of us are choosing to become bugmen or embrace goblin core, voluntary mutations, knowing that it's easier to survive as vermin than to fail as humans. And above it all, the compound eye of a Czech insurance clerk, dilated in neurotic horror, watches unblinking as the precise dimensions of his imagined hell are realized at scale. Kafka's dark vision wasn't a prophecy, it was a preview. The metamorphosis is almost complete. We are all Gregor now.
Hello, and welcome to Canon Fodder. I am Tom, and I've spent many years wrestling with the question of why some books sink their teeth into us and never let go, and others gather dust on shelves labelled classic. This is a channel that aims to bring literature to life. Sometimes we'll dive deep into the twisted labyrinths of works like The Metamorphosis, and other times we'll ask if Sally Rooney's Normal People is truly the millennial epic, or whether drugs and alcohol actually help produce good literature, or how MFA creative writing programs have shaped the course of today's fiction. From Homeric epic to fan fiction, from sacred text to unhinged Twitter, nothing is too lowly or too mighty for us to explore together. Although my academic background is in literature, what fascinates me isn't just, how these works were written, but what they mean now, how they evolve, how they persist, twitching and squirming in our hands long after they were first penned. Sometimes a book that's been sitting quietly on shelves for a century springs to life, revealing meanings its author could never have imagined, as if it's been waiting for our world to catch up to its nightmares. Today, we're starting with Kafka's Metamorphosis, because this widely loved story isn't just about a man who transforms into a beetle, it's about much more. What happens when the familiar becomes alien? What happens when we lose our ability to recognize ourselves or each other, and how quickly a change in circumstances can alter our perception of reality and human nature. So, unfurl your chitinous wings and scuttle over to the table. It's time to feast on Kafka's infinite parable. The Metamorphosis could have been just another 50-page piece of surrealist fiction, but instead it became one of literature's most enduring stories. A literary Rorschach test where what you see reflected in Gregor's little shell might tell you something interesting about the kind of monster you're in danger of becoming. The plot is Deceptively simple. Gregor Samsa, a travelling salesman who works long hours to support his debt-ridden family, wakes up one morning transformed into a giant, let's say, insect-like creature, and his first worry is that he'll be late for work. What follows is both darkly comic and deeply tragic, as Gregor struggles to maintain his humanity while his family grapples with his grotesque new form. And Franz Kafka was the perfect author for this tale of fractured identity. Prague-born, German-speaking, Jewish-raised, professionally Austrian, what Jack Barron in the London magazine, shout out, called a hyphenated being. Born into a Jewish ghetto in Prague, Kafka spent his life grappling with alienation and self-hatred. By day, he processed workers' accident insurance claims, and by night, he transformed his experiences of bureaucratic dehumanization into stories about people being crushed by the machinery of modern life. I first encountered the Metamorphosis as a teenager, and like many readers, I thought it was about family drama or social rejection. But every time I've returned to it, teaching it to adult students in pre-coup Myanmar, say, or as a burned out office worker during the isolation of the pandemic, it's shown me something new. The story morphs with each reading, each crisis, each transformation in our own lives. The first sentence of the Metamorphosis is rightly celebrated.
Als Gregor Samsa eines Morgens aus unruhigen Träumen erwachte, fand sich in seinem Bett zu einem ungeheurer Ungeziefer verwandelt.
Or in English, when Gregor Samsa woke one morning from uneasy dreams, he found himself transformed in his bed into a monstrous, whatever an Ungeziefer is. See, Gregor is not transformed into a beetle or an insect or even a monster, but into an Ungeziefer. And this is a word that in German literally translates as an animal unfit for sacrifice. So something unworthy, impure, a reject from the social order. Enter Vladimir Nabokov, prose master, world-class entomologist, insect freak, and probably delighted to be asked about something other than Lolita for once. He confidently pronounced he'd solved the mystery and that Gregor was a beetle, with wings beneath his shell, just over 3 feet long. But he's already falling for the classic Kafka misdirection, focusing on the physical details while he misses the existential horror lurking beneath. You see, the moment you try to pin Gregor down like a specimen in a bug collection, you lose what makes him haunting, and you're in danger of literature's greatest folly, the great plague of GCSE classrooms.
Reductive interpretation.
To understand what I mean by this, here's a tweet by midwit meme father Richard Dawkins.
Kafka's Metamorphosis is called a major work of literature. Why? If it's sci-fi, it's bad sci-fi. If, like Animal Farm, it's an allegory of what? Scholarly answers range from pretentious Freudian to far-fetched feminist. I don't get it. Where are the emperor's clothes?
Yes, Richard, that's exactly how literature works. Just crack the code, find the one true meaning, and you've solved the book. Cheers erupt, Kafka himself descends from the ceiling to kiss you on the lips. This impulse to reduce literature to simple metaphors, to ask what kind of insect is Gregor, or even what does the insect represent, is the same impulse that turns people off literature when their GCSE teacher insists that, say, the green light in Gatsby is aspiration, or the storm in King Lear means psychological turmoil. This isn't good enough for us. And Kafka knew this, insisting that no artwork depicting the transformation into an insect or an Ungeziefer should appear on his book covers. Kafka understood what great horror directors would later discover. The moment you literalize the monster, you rob it of its power to reflect the viewer's own fears. Because what matters isn't what kind of beetle Gregor is, it's what being Ungeziefer means, to be cast out, to be deemed unworthy by those around you. And Kafka's genius lies not just in what he refuses to show us, but in how he makes us feel it. So let's talk about horror. To understand how Kafka suffuses the story with horror, let's take a quick look at some other masters. Take Edvard Munch's The Scream. As you may know, the scream in the title isn't actually coming from the figure we see here. It's actually what they're hearing. The painting captures the reaction, leaving us to imagine what lurks outside the frame. It's the same insight behind Psycho's infamous shower scene, focusing not on the killer, but on Janet Leigh's face as she realizes her fate. Kafka works the same way. The physical transformation is presented almost casually. More important is how everyone reacts. Gregor remains conscious through it all. He's trapped in a nightmare where he can understand everything, but he can't make himself understood. The horror comes not from the descriptions of his insect form, but from watching him try to maintain human connections, even as they slip away. So that's how Kafka creates this strong feeling of horror. Let's now look at the true genius of the story, which actually contains not one, but 4 concurrent metamorphoses, each more horrifying than the last. First, there's the obvious one, right? Gregor's physical transformation into an insect. It's shocking, yes, but Kafka dispenses with it in a single sentence. It's like a magician's misdirection. This visible metamorphosis distracts us from the deeper changes already in motion. The second change happened long before Gregor woke up that morning. The slow, grinding mutation of a human being into a function, what T.S. Eliot might call a hollow man. His role as the family provider, tasked with paying off his debts, has been eroding his humanity for years. As we mentioned, his first concern isn't, I'm an insect, it's, I'll be late for work. The horror isn't that he's transformed, it's that he's still trying to do his job. His mind tied to the ticking of the clock, even as his body sprouts legs and antennae. The third metamorphosis, that of Gregor's family, is perhaps the cruelest. We watch as the horror gives way to inconvenience, as their concern curdles into resentment, as they move from caring for Gregor to caring about what the neighbors might think, from talking to him to talking about him. It's a masterclass in how quickly unconditional love reveals its conditions. But the final transformation, and here's Kafka's most brilliant twist, belongs to Gregor's sister, Greta. As Gregor deteriorates, Greta flourishes. She moves from dependent child to family coordinator, from playing violin for her brother's entertainment to performing for paying lodgers. And in the story's final brilliant paragraph, after Gregor's death, we get this devastating observation. It struck both Mr. and Mrs. Samsa, almost at the same moment, how their daughter had blossomed lately, despite all the troubles which had made her cheeks pale, into a beautiful and full-figured young woman. And it was like a confirmation of their new dreams and excellent intentions that at the end of their journey, their daughter sprang to her feet first and stretched her young body. It's a mirror of the first sentence. Greta's metamorphosis completes the cycle. As one family member, Gregor, becomes vermin, another rises to take his place. The new Greta is everything Gregor can no longer be. She's beautiful, productive, socially acceptable. Her blossoming sprouts from his decay. There is, perhaps, a dark premonition here of the century to come. Not just Kafka's own complicated relationships with women, but the great social upheavals that would follow, as women stepped into roles once reserved for men, leaving some men feeling, well, rather unnecessary, ugly, toxic. This pattern keeps repeating in our stories today. Stories from Fight Club to Todd Phillips' Joker, we keep telling these tales of men who become monstrous when society deems them unnecessary. These are warnings about what happens when we stop trying to understand the alien voices that chitter at us from dark basements and sealed off rooms, no matter how repulsive they may seem. If Kafka were writing today, he might find his Gregor among the terminally online youth of China. First came Tang Ping, a Chinese meme that means lying flat. Young workers crushed under the 996 work culture, that's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week, started rejecting both professional and domestic responsibilities. No marriage, no kids, no mortgage, no career, just lying flat and letting the beatings of life wash over you. Then came something darker, bailan. Let it rot. This isn't passive resistance anymore. This is active sabotage. The difference between quietly quitting your job and deliberately doing it so badly that you expose its absurdity. If Tang Ping says, I won't play your game, Bailan says, I'll play your game so incompetently, so maliciously, that I'll reveal how broken it always was. Western movements like Goblin Core, Goblin Mode, Goblin Pill, right? They mimic this evolution. It's deliberately celebrating the dirty and the feral. It's choosing mushroom foraging over Waitrose or Whole Foods. It's a wallowing Shrek-like disorder instead of Instagram perfection. Just like their Chinese counterparts, these self-proclaimed goblins aren't just withdrawing from conventional success. They're actively rejecting pressure to be presentable, profitable, or productive. The stakes of all of this become clearer when we consider society's response to those who drop out. Consider the recent expansion of medical assistance for the dying, euthanasia, which now includes those suffering from depression and from poverty, a stark parallel to Gregor's fate. You see, when society makes people feel like such burdens that they choose to disappear, we've performed our own quiet metamorphosis. From a community that cares for its vulnerable members into one that simply wishes them away. Lie flat, then let it rot. It would be hard to summarize Gregor's story more succinctly. Kafka's masterpiece endures because it keeps transforming alongside us. From pandemic isolation to digital alienation, from quiet quitting to going full goblin mode, we keep finding new ways to become unrecognizable to ourselves and to each other. The real power of the metamorphosis isn't in the physical transformation. It's in showing us that metamorphosis isn't just something that happens to heroes and gods and myths. Sometimes it happens in small rooms to ordinary people on perfectly normal mornings. And maybe what haunts us most isn't the transformation itself, but the creeping suspicion that we're all just one bad morning away from becoming unintelligible to each other. Thanks for watching this first episode of Canon Fodder. This channel is my attempt to bridge worlds between classical and contemporary, between academic analysis and lived experience, between the books that haunt us and the lives we're living. Each video is going to be a different way of exploring literature, what it means now, how it transforms alongside us, and why it matters, perhaps more than ever. If you're interested in joining this journey, if you want to explore everything from ancient epic to modern memoir, from the works that define generations to the underground currents that are sweeping through literature right now, hit subscribe. And let me know in the comments, what modern phenomenon would Kafka write about if he were alive today? Until next time, keep reading, keep questioning, and keep scrabbling your little insect legs. The only way out is through. Bye.